Hiya, I'm Ellie and today I want to talk to you all about the books that I've read in 2017. At the beginning of this year, in about beginning of February, I did a video on LGBT fiction book recommendations, and it's been like my most popular video, which I'm very pleased about because I love people reading LGBT fiction. So I thought I'd share some more books. Some of the first books that I read this year were included in that video and some of the others as well, so I won't go into loads of detail on those ones, but I'm just going to mention them all, give you a brief kind of overview of them and maybe tell you a bit about some that I felt really strongly about. So the first book I read this year is Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst. I talked about this in my LGBT video along with the next like 4 books. 3 books, one of them. This is fantastic, I really love it. Go and watch my other video if you want to know more about it. But it's about essentially 2 princesses who fall in love and there's magic, and it's really good and I really enjoyed it. It's a pretty good size and I liked it a lot. And I want to reread it because I liked it so much and my memory's pretty fuzzy because it was a whole year ago. So that was number 1. The next book was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. Again, this was in the other video. Really enjoyed this. When I reviewed this in my other video, I kind of cried. I got really emotional over the characters. They're just really kind of pure-hearted, relatable people, and they're good, and you want to read about them and you want them to have a good ending, and it's a really nice book. And again, it's 2 LGBT characters in the main story, so very nice. This is a book called Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee. I'm not sure if I talked about this in my LGBT recommendation video, but I kind of linked it in the bottom. It's about superheroes, and the main kind of 2 characters are queer. I really enjoyed it. Again, I can't remember loads because it was near the beginning of the year when I read this, but I did enjoy it. It's a little book, it's not very long. The characters are fun. It was a fun book, and like superhero concepts, always fun. Especially like new superhero concepts that aren't like Marvel or DC or anything, like fresh new superhero concepts with queer characters. Always great. The 4th book that I read this year was The Abyss Surrounds Us by Emily Skrutsky. I liked it, but I was kind of dissatisfied by the ending, but I've become aware that there is a sequel, so I've got that on my Amazon wishlist. And I'm gonna buy it and read the sequel, and then we'll see if it changes what I think about this book. This is kind of gay pirates. I enjoyed it, but not loads and loads, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna read the other book because I enjoyed it enough that I want to read the sequel and see what happens. So this book, it was good. Again, it's only a little one, so you don't have to put too much time and commitment into it, so I would recommend it, but not like right at the top of my recommendation list. So those were the first 4 books I read this year, which are very much in the same bubble of LGBT fantasy and science fiction, which is my favourite genre, but I did read a variation of genres and different types of books throughout this year. The next book I read is called Japanese Fashion Cultures, which I got for Christmas last year. This was really interesting just because it's something that I'm really interested in. It's kind of got different essays throughout the book, and some of them were more interesting than others. Some of them I was like, oh, I'm so bored, just because it's interesting, but like sometimes you get too many of the facts and you're like. I think that my favourite chapter was the one called Ribbons and Lace, Girls' Decorative Femininity and Androgyny. But yeah, it was overall a really cool book, and I'm going to keep it for, you know, if there's anything I want to write an essay on or do a presentation on that might be relevant, and I can have a look in here. In my video that was on the politics of pink fashion, I actually quoted from this at one point, so, you know, it's been useful to me already, and I did enjoy it. It's by Masafumi Monden. The thing I read after that, it wasn't like a proper book, so I don't have it here, but it was the Communist Manifesto, obviously by Marx and Engels, just because that's the kind of person that I am. So after that I read Chavs by Owen Jones. This is a really interesting and a really important book. It's really highlighting the classism that is just so present everywhere, but like specifically in the UK here. And it's like, don't use the word chav. Don't do it. What are you doing? Don't do it, and read this book. I also read this year, reread Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I read this on my journey to Portland when I went to Portland in April, just like the whole thing, because obviously it's a very small book. Look how faded the spine of that is. I love it. It's got a very special place in my heart. Obviously I love Harry Potter. I don't need to tell you about it. It's Harry Potter. But one of the books I read this year. I didn't read any of the rest of the series, just this one, just because, you know, it's just kind of nice and comforting. So when I was in Portland, I bought this book, and this was in my, like, what I got from Portland video, but I didn't want to go too much into it because I knew I wanted to talk about it more at some point. This is called Dreadnought. It's by April Daniels. Really, really cool. I read this on my way back from Portland, like the whole thing, and I loved it. It's a bit like Not Your Sidekick in that it's a superhero fiction LGBT book, but I personally preferred this one. The main character is a trans girl, and she's also into girls. I had to remind myself because I read it in one go and it was a wild ride. This book is so important because of the identities that are present in it and the way that it talks about that. But it's also like a really thrilling story. It's superheroes, but it's got such a like complex web of characters, and the plot is really good. I want there to be another one. I think there might be. Oh, I've got a rainbow bookmark in it. And essentially the basic plot is that the main character inherits the kind of mantle of being the superhero Dreadnought from the last Dreadnought, and it kind of, once you get the powers, it also changes yourself, like your bodily self, into like your dream bodily self at the same time, and it means that she then physically becomes like a girl, and it's such an important book. Very good. This is another book by Owen Jones. This is called The Establishment, and how they get away with it. And this is incredible. Again, it's very British based, but this is kind of more universal because the establishment's the same. Capitalist dickheads. Owen Jones's books are so accessible and they're so important for people to read to really understand what the world is like. I'll just read you the kind of blurby bit. The question of who really rules us and what they're up to matters more than ever. Today, at the heart of our democracy, lurks an all-powerful network of people. They are unaccountable and unchallenged. They are making huge profits at our expense. They are the establishment. Jones shows how, in claiming to work on our behalf, the people at the top are doing precisely the opposite. In fact, they represent the biggest threat to our democracy today, and it is time they were challenged. It is, he urges, up to us to do so. Let's take down society. Okay, next up, this book is the most important to me on within this video. This is no less the Mystic, A History of Lenin and the Russian Revolution for a 21st Century Left by John Medhurst, who is my dad. It's a brick. It's written by my dad. He writes in a pretty chill way, very accessible, and it's, like it says in the title, it's for a 21st Century Left, so it's written to be digested by us now and to be related to the world that we live in now, so that it's actually important. There's a chapter on like the women's struggle, there's a chapter on education and arts, and those are my favourites because it caters more to my interests, but it's really interesting. I'll just read you the bit at the back just to sum it up. What really happened in Russia before, during and after the Bolshevik insurrection of October 1917? How did Bolshevism slide so quickly into Stalinism? Was there ever a difference? What democratic alternatives existed? After that, I wanted to read something light-hearted, fictional. So I read Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I got this book again when I was in Portland. I really liked, you know, the book itself. It's a very pretty copy of it. And the story was actually very easy to read, very easily digestible. Kind of Jane Austen's take on like a gothic novel, and I knew that, so I had certain expectations when I went in that it was going to have more gothicness in it. I found that it fit together quite strangely, but I did enjoy it. After that, I read this book called The Power by Naomi Alderman. This has been really, really hyped up, and I have to say, I didn't like it. I wrote a review of it on my laptop because I had so many feelings about it when I finished it, because I was so annoyed. I don't want to do a full review, but I might get it up just so I can just tell you why I just kind of didn't like it. I was disappointed because it's been so hyped, and it was... The blurb says, all over the world, women are discovering they have the power. With a flick of the fingers, they can inflict terrible pain, even death. Suddenly, every man on the planet finds they've lost control. The day of the girls has arrived, but where will it end? But I essentially felt kind of cheated with the concept of it. I felt disappointed. I've got written here, in the book, women have power instead of men. That's something, it's kind of a concept that has been done before, but maybe if we did talk about how it affected trans people, how it affected LGBT plus people, or, and I feel this very strongly, how it affected ordinary working class people who have never really had the power anyway, and so whose lives would not really be structurally flipped if the gendered roles were reversed in quite the same way. I feel like it needs to be a deeper insight into society rather than men and women, because our society is so much more structurally complex than that. It's intersectional. After that, I needed something that I knew would make me happy. So then, the next 4 books I read was rereading the Have Mercy series, or the Vostok cycle. I've mentioned these in my video I did before. This is my favourite book series. Have Mercy is the first one. I love them. It's like steampunk, dragons, magic, character development, and a lot of kind of character interaction, and many LGBT characters. I love these books. Please read them, please read them. Once I finished them, this book came out, which I was really excited about. This is Undercover Princess by Noodlerella, Connie Glynn. I really enjoyed this. I'm really excited for the next one to come out. I believe she's writing it at the moment. I really like the characterization. I know that there's queer characters in it, and there's gonna be kind of more characters who are queer, and I think that it's really important. I think it's a really important kind of thing to have within this genre, and I just enjoyed it. It was a nice book, and I could see it was setting up the other books, but I just really loved the characters, and I like that one of the characters was called Ellie, and there's one line where it's like, the only thing I've ever been with a boy is annoyed, and I'm like, me too. And then I went back onto non-fiction. So this is called The Button Box. I think I got it for my birthday, maybe. It's the story of women in the 20th century told through the clothes they wore, which obviously for me as a fashion history student is very interesting. And basically the author has a box of buttons that she's inherited from like her family, and she looks at all the different kinds of buttons, and she kind of tells about what clothes these buttons would have been on, and then where the women would have been wearing these clothes and what they would have cost. And it's a really interesting take on a social history, and I really feel like clothes are one of the most interesting ways to address social history, because everyone wears clothes every day, and it's just seeing it through that lens is just my favourite thing. Nearing the end, after that I did another little reread. This is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. I really love this book. I read it last year as well, and I definitely preferred it reading it again, just because you kind of know more about the characters, that you can kind of see them properly from the beginning if you're rereading it. I also wanted to read this because the trailer for the movie adaptation, which looks slightly different but still really good, called Love, Simon, the trailer came out recently, so I was like, I'll just read that book and see kind of what the comparisons. So I'm really excited for that movie. I really like this book. If you've read it before, I would recommend reading it again, because I really did enjoy it more the second time. And, you know, it's gay. It's obviously gay, like why else would I be reading it? It's about like I didn't even know what it's about. Simon Spear is 16 and trying to work out who he is and what he's looking for. And when one of his emails to the very distracting Blue falls into the wrong hands, things get all kinds of complicated. And he's gay. So, okay, and then the last book that I'm reading, which is what I'm reading right now, it's an Agatha Christie. Look at how faded this is. So this is a book it's got 3 different Agatha Christie stories in the book, and I read one a few years ago and I was like, do you know what would be nice? Sitting around in the living room with the Christmas tree reading like a nice murder mystery. So I'm reading the second one in this, which is called The Big Four. I'm enjoying it. It's a murder mystery. Okay, so those are the books that I've read this year, not including university reading because there was a lot of that. Yeah, I'm really excited for some books that I know I'm gonna read in the future. Like I said, the sequel to The Abyss Surrounds Us. I've got another couple of books on my wish list that I want to get, which are LGBT fantasy fiction. And then I've got some more kind of political books, some dress history books. I've got Star Wars, the Visual Dictionary, The Last Jedi Visual Dictionary, and I'm very excited to look through this. I have not yet had a chance. I got it for Christmas and I haven't had a chance yet, but I'm very excited to do that. Yeah, that was my 2017 in books. If you've read any of these books, please like tell me what you thought about them, because I want to know, especially if it's one that's like controversial opinions like The Power. Like, did you agree with me? Did you hate it? I hope that you've all had a really good 2017. If you didn't, it's finished now. It's fine. Let's move on. There's always potential for you to have a better day, a better year. Just keep going, keep reading your books. It's a fun time. I'll see you all soon. Bye.